my book event, book signing, book presentation. My name is Jerome Mathias, author and artist of the Mekonnen the Epic Adventures of Mekonnen. Just celebrated the 6-year anniversary, as you can see in the projector there. And really glad you guys can make it because, people are kind of concerned about the roads and everything. Some of my friends were saying, I know, it's going to be a parade, it might be protesting, but I was like, hey, the show's going to go on. So yeah, we're here. I live in the DMV and, I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. And when I was living there, I was inspired to write and illustrate like a comic book character of African descent that was Ethiopian, right? And because I always heard about the Ethiopian, culture. I always heard about Ethiopia in my culture, like in the music, in the Bible, So I was like, I always liked, I liked like comic books, like X-Men and even there was a Conan the Barbarian and Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, but so, and me and my brother, we were artists, and we just wanted to make our own comic book character, so it's gonna go at my slides here. This is a Mekonnen Epic. These are the products that I have, the items I have, like a illustrated novel. This one is like 420 pages with illustrations and text. I have a comic book. Can find a copy of my comic book here right now. I have coloring books. It's an example. I have 3 coloring books actually. This is just one. This one is it's the first, and then I have one for girls and one for boys. All right. As you can see here, coloring books, and you can find them here in Sankofa Bookstore, and also on Amazon and Buddha. Why did you say that? All right, let's go. Yeah, you're right. That's why the first thing I said was get them here. Actually, because I don't get that much money back from Amazon. So anyway, let's keep going. So recently, like about a year ago, I got my book featured in an ad space. What's the name? It was the Reading Glass Books, and they got my book advertised together with other authors in this magazine. And the cover of the magazine has Reese Witherspoon. It was like June 2024. So, just nice little thing there. And they wrote up a really nice review for me. You see this author spotlight, and they got me also featured in the Hollywood Book Review. Wrote me a really nice review there, and I received the seal of excellent merit. And not all authors get this seal of excellent merit. So that means they really love the story, and I guess they love the what it stands for, the good versus evil, the morals and everything. That's probably what they were really drawn to, right? Keep going. It's Barnes and Noble. It's on the website. It's not in the store. It's on the website. Barnes and Noble.
The bookstore advertising.
So don't show. Gotcha. So I'll keep going. Yeah. Definitely look for them in Sankofa Bookstore. It's the website. So this is what Mekonnen Epic. Mekonnen Epic. It's an historical fantasy adventure about a young warrior in medieval times, Ethiopia, on a quest to find the armor of God, which includes the sword of light to defeat evil forces and from a dark dimension. It's a series of illustrated novels, comic books, artwork, merchandise centered around Mekonnen and his friends and enemies he encounters in this journey and in the natural realm and spiritual realm. That's what it's about. So basically, Mekonnen has to go from just having a regular, suit like this, the regular clothes, to having a full armor of God with a helmet, and a shield and a breastplate and a belt, So he has to go from that to that. And in his journey and his adventures, there will be a lot of, adventure. There will be a lot of, challenges and obstacles he has to go through. A lot of learning, uh, personal growth, and everything. Right. The full armor of God is mentioned in the Holy Bible, in Ephesians chapter 6, verse uh, 10 to 8, and Isaiah, Hebrews, and the book of Romans, and the Wisdom of Solomon. So I'm going a little fast here because I don't want to. I have a lot of slides. I'm going to go to all the slides, but don't want to linger too much. And then also learning about Ethiopia, Cush, and Sheba mentioned in the Bible. Starting from Genesis. It mentions the land of Cush, and where one of the four rivers, the river Gihon, flows out of Eden into the land of Cush, which is Ethiopia. And then you have in Psalms where it mentions Cush will bring gifts to Jerusalem. And then Isaiah, it says predicts that Cush will be a part of God's people. And then in the New Testament, Book of Acts, where the apostle Philip baptized an Ethiopian eunuch, right? So all of these things kind of captured my attention while I was growing up in Trinidad, even before I even been to Ethiopia or met Ethiopians. So who is Mekonnen? He's a fictional character that I created as a warrior during the times during the real Ethiopian civilization in the height of the Aksumite Empire, somewhere around 540 AD in the Horn of Africa. And Mekonnen is just a young man in his mid-20s, living a normal life as a warrior guard, in the first African nation to accept Christianity at the time as the official language. And he was just, guarding the emperor and the royal family and the nobles and the priests and everything, and the Ark of the Covenant, the fabled Ark of the Covenant. So in Aksumite, so this is a map I drew here. Right, so this is during the time of the height of the Aksumite Empire, almost 1,000 years, from around 180 to 990 AD. It was a very prosperous civilization, influences influenced by the Semitic and Cushitic cultures, and is known for having a Judaism and early Christianity and also some paganism, before, and the Shebans, Sabaeans from the Arabian Peninsula. All right. This is a map I drew here that became very popular online. A lot of other content creators have been borrowing my map and to talk about the Aksumite Empire. And so this is just some snippets from my book, some artwork that is featured in this book, the novel, but it's in black and white in my illustrated novel. But if you want to see them in color, you can get the ebook, right? So they're showing here. They're showing the scope of the part of the Aksumite Empire. Just I have like kind of a double page spread with a palace in the background, and in the foreground you have like priests and musicians and the royal family. So I wanted to show that pomp and grandeur. That you don't see much. That when I was growing up, you didn't really see much of that. When you talk about an African civilization, it was usually something that they would show that was like primitive or something. So these are some of the villains that show up in the book. The Catalian, which stands for assassins in Ge'ez. All right, and this is Mekonnen and his comrade, just standing guard, and some young ladies walking by. Another double page spread, and this is just showing here on the left the process where I kind of drew with hand, pen and ink, and then I scanned it and then added color with Photoshop and Illustrator. Here is just showing. I wanted to show the unity of Ethiopia and Eritrea. Different people and different cultures and languages. Because in the book he starts his story in the northern part of Ethiopia in Aksum, but he also travels outside of Aksum and he meets other people. He becomes friends. He forms alliances with people from different parts of Ethiopia. So I wanted to show that camaraderie and friendship, unity. Because it's kind of these days there's a lot of tensions going on in all parts of the world, including Ethiopia. So. Here's another scene here, just showing some action, like a monster trying to attack Mekonnen. Right. You have the Simien Mountains. That's one of the main mountain ranges in Ethiopia, and I believe the second highest peak is there in Africa. Right. So, any questions? Let me just pause a little bit. Any thoughts?
To me being an illustrator.
Yeah. Thank you. It's not, yeah. Yeah. Are you an artist yourself? Or yeah, I can tell. You're an artist. Art teacher, okay. It does, it does. Yeah. It does. And getting into the mood and everything. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, Very have a question.
What is your workflow like from traditional to digital?
So I would draw with hand with pencil first, and then I would use a marker for the hard outline. Then I'll scan it into my computer and I open it in Photoshop and I'll open it in Illustrator, and then I'll make the pencil line in Illustrator. When you can do the what's the feature? It's called like trace something. Trace something. I forgot the full feature name, but when you select the image that you scanned and you click that, it changes into a vector, if you know what vector is, right? So a vector is like it takes the pencil lines, when you zoom into a pencil line, you see like little jagged edges, but when it's a vector, it's like smooth, so it makes it smooth, right? And then I would take that vector image and open it in Photoshop and select like the different sections and add the color. I may add flat colors first, and then afterwards I'll add gradient colors so that it looks like natural, like skin tones and things like that, or natural, or I add effects like flares and stuff like you see on Mekonnen's belt. I'll add like Photoshop effects and filters and layers, so. And yeah, then I'll save it. That will be a PSD file, and I'll export it as either Photoshop or a PNG file. If you're a graphic artist, you know all these terms, but I know Vera is learning this thing, and then I'll add it into the. Let me show an example of a page spread. Yeah, then I would use InDesign to add the text, and with InDesign you can include images into it. So that's how I did it. Same thing I did with the cover and everything. Okay, it's good. Anything else? Any other questions? Here's just a character. He's actually a warrior angel surrounded by some of the bad guys, some of the Catalan, and you see have like word bubbles like a comic book. So that's a kind of a action scene that's in the book. And this is Mekonnen and his mentor Abashilo climbing up an Amba. And Amba is like a steep mountain those steep mountains in Ethiopia and Eritrea, and they usually they have like monasteries and like hidden like even like churches and stuff and old scrolls. So I want to show like you know Here, his mentor Mekonnen is following him up the steep mountain here to get some clues so that he can find parts of the arm of God. You know, he's one of the main boss of the Catalan, the assassins. I call him Death Cloak. All right. See the pencil drawing, and then afterwards you see the Photoshop enhancements with the colors and the effects and everything. It's another scene of Mekonnen battling with a serpent. Also, another character, another villain that shows up in the story. So in Ethiopia, there's an old legend from northern Ethiopia that a serpent king named Wainaba was terrorizing the region. Like like he was ruling over them, you know, and he demanded a sacrifice every year of like a virgin, you know, and and then this king or prince named Angabo came from Sabaya, which is Yemen today. So he came from there and he defeated the serpent. Now there's another legend that said that three monks defeated or killed the serpent, but then there's another one that says that this Prince Angabo defeated the serpent. So you know, I don't know which one is the original, but you know, and the prince is supposed to be the Queen of Sheba's father or grandfather. You know, so that's how it ties in with you know biblical stories of King Solomon again, right? So I imagine what if this serpent he is resurrected by like some kind of dark magic, you know, that like he's resurrected and the serpent wants to take revenge on the people that destroyed him, you know. You know, if you read the book, you know what I'm talking about, right? So I just came up with that. Here's Mekonnen and Abishilo in Lake Tana. This is a lake that's in Ethiopia, and I've been there, and I've been to some of these islands in Lake Tana, and there's like a lot of when you go there, there's like a lot of churches and monks and artifacts and museums on some of the islands, you know. So I wanted to work this location into the story. So you see here on the left, Mekonnen and Abishilo, they're like in a canoe, they call it tankwa, and you see like the serpent is like there, like confronting them in the water. You can see his eye kind of popping out. All right. And here's like a battle scene that's in the book. Forces collide when Abishilo and Mekonnen come face to face with some of the Catalan, you know. And there's another character that shows up. This kind of the horned creature in Ethiopia. They call them the ibex. You know, they have like really nice, magnificent looking horns. They're in the mountains. They're really agile in the mountains too. They can go up like steep, you know, cliffs, and you know, I really admire those ibexes. This is me in Ethiopia being interviewed on Walter TV. This was in I think 2021, and I was invited by Walter TV to be interviewed. And this is the host Helen, and this you know this was a good experience here for me. And this is me in Gondor, one of my favorite spots in Ethiopia. And the top left is my guide and for now friend, Haile Mariam Ephraim, and two young ladies. And below here is the Timkat Festival. This is where they're celebrating first Timkat is celebrating its Epiphany, celebrating the baptism of Jesus by John the Baptist, but they also celebrate the Ark of the Covenant. You know, there's like priests and deacons and monks and musicians parading through the streets for like 3 days. You know, it reminds me of in Trinidad we have Carnival, where we parade in the streets for like a weekend for like 4 days. You know, wear costumes and it's colorful and music, but this is more like reverent. It's like that, but it's like a reverent version of it. You know, and so this is me here again in Gondor, and below here is myself and another artist, Alam Getachow, who owns a art school and art gallery and a cafe in Gerji, Addis Ababa. And also another artist here on the right, Jonas Amea, right? This was around like 2001, around there. And this is just a montage I made of different parts of Ethiopia. I think I made this for a project at work or something, to show, they wanted us to make like we were practicing PowerPoint presentations, and I made a series of montages. And this is Addis Ababa. Yeah, I think that's a Sheraton hotel. I'm not sure. Anyone that's from Ethiopia that can correct me which hotel this is. It's in Addis Ababa. You see the Hilton or the Sheraton? Skylight. Okay, it's a Skylight Hotel. And then here is Mescal Square with the lion statue, I believe. Is that Mescal? National Theater. Okay, National Theater. Right. So yeah. And then you have the museum. You have like this shield and sword of I believe this belonged to Emperor Tewodros, if I'm not mistaken, right? But basically, I was just trying to show. I was showing my colleagues at work that there's like cities and towns and development in Ethiopia, and not just huts and jungles and things that you think about. That most of the world used to think about when you think about Ethiopia. You just think that's just huts and jungles, or deserts. It's more than that, right? This is Bahar Dar. Really nice looking town, city with palm trees. This is also on our way to Abai Falls, the Blue Nile Falls. This is the source of the River Nile, and the waterfall is usually much larger, but it's smaller now because of the dam that they built around there, the hydroelectric dam, right? And this is me going to on Lake Tana, as we saw earlier with Mekonnen on the Lake Tana there. This is me going there, and there's like a museum and artwork. They did artwork on like animal skin. Really impressive as an artist. I really appreciate this. There's like old crowns and scepters of some of the old kings and queens and princes and everything. Right. This is Lalibela, very significant location in Ethiopia. They have churches that are dug into a mountain, 11 churches that are dug out in the mountain, and each one has their own like characteristic, these churches. And during the time of Mekonnen, this Lalibela, these structures were not there yet, and Lalibela was actually called Roha, and I think Roha, my guide said, it meant clean mountain. But when Lalibela sanctioned this project, they changed it to King Lalibela. They changed it to his name, right? And Gondor, some of the palaces from Gondor, Ethiopia, the birthplace of Emperor Tewodros, right? Old castles, and then Aksum, the place where my story begins, and I believe is also the kind of like the source of the modern Ethiopian culture now. With this is where it was one of the largest empires in the world at the time. The four largest. You had China, Persia, and Rome and then Aksum. They were the three largest empires at that time, right? It's just a merging of the Cushitic and the Semitic people coming together and kind of forming a culture. Yeah, and so any questions or comments before I go on? Okay, good. Yeah, and later I was able to go to other parts of Ethiopia, not just I just came. This is mostly like northern and central Ethiopia. So I've also been to Hawassa, and I've been to Debre Zeit, and a part of Shashamemi, right? I wanted to put more photos of those up here, but time kind of ran out on me, you know. But because I do appreciate all the regions of Ethiopia, not just one specific region or culture, so these are showing some of the movies and books that inspired me, inspired me when growing up. They have Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia, and the Savage Sword of Conan, right? And these are the authors: J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and Robert E. Howard. So as you can see, growing up, a lot of the heroes and a lot of the comic books and adventure and fantasy books, they were made mostly from a European kind of point of view, right? So, and even though I really enjoyed them, but then I was like, well, I would like to see some more, adventures and fantasy with African characters, and not just showing African characters in a debased, lower manner, right? So, you know, um, and also King Arthur stories, particularly the Excalibur movie, was very influential with the. And I don't know how many of us seen this movie growing up. This is like 1981, and it's one of the it's very intriguing. And I love the armor and the swords and the mythology of pulling the sword out of the rock and everything. So you know, so I wanted, so with Ethiopia, it has its own mythologies and its own like mystique, and I was like, okay, I can use that as an inspiration for my story. Okay. So going now to my origins, this is where I was born and raised, where I grew up, Trinidad and Tobago, and it's in the Caribbean. It's next to Venezuela, which is in South America. It's kind of like Jamaica, but different. You know, you have Jamaica, Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Cuba, Puerto Rico. These are all Caribbean islands. So we're all part of the Caribbean. And then we have us, Trinidad and Tobago. And it was called the Jewel of the Caribbean is our nickname. And we're known for the carnival and carnival celebrations. The steel drum was invented in Trinidad. It's one of the only musical instruments that was invented and created in the 20th century, like the early 1900s was when this steel drum was created. And we have beaches and cities, metropolitan cities and suburbs, and an oil and gas economy. At one point we were one of the richest islands in the Caribbean. Right? We have diverse cultures, diversity of races, ethnic groups. They have African, Indian, the indigenous, and Chinese, European. We all mixed together, but the most prominent in Trinidad are the African descent and Indian descent, and mixtures in between. Okay. So there's again going back to my early influences in the Holy Bible, as I showed earlier, and then hearing about Haile Selassie in the airwaves all the time with the reggae music, and from these like artists like Bob Marley and Buju Banton and Black Uhuru and these guys. So I was hearing about Ethiopia, and I was like, why is it such a big deal? What is this? So I wanted to look deeper into it myself. And then of course growing up, I always heard about the negative depictions of Africa. Of course you have the great TV series Roots. I always heard about the Ethiopian famine that was going on in the 80s, and they even had like donations and like donation drives in my elementary school and primary schools that I went to in Trinidad. So I always thought, hey, well, maybe Africa is this is all about Africa, like it's just where slaves came from or something, or and then in the movies and stuff, it's just about jungles, and elephants and gorillas, you know. But then, like, I did some, more research, and I found out that Emperor Haile Selassie actually visited Trinidad in 1966, right? And this is a picture here of Haile Selassie shaking hands with um, an A&R Robinson, who became prime minister later. And then next to him, he had a guy with the earpiece. This was our first prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Eric Williams. And when we became independent from the British Empire in 1962, Eric Williams was our first prime minister. And before that, Eric Williams actually studied at Howard University and also, I believe, in Oxford in England. Right. And then Haile Selassie also visited Jamaica after Trinidad in April the 23rd. And it was much more exciting and excitement going on in Jamaica when he landed there, and the Rastafarians were, making a loud noise and scene, and you know, and it was a big event, and I actually didn't know that. So I didn't know that he visited 4 Caribbean islands. Actually, he visited first Trinidad, then Jamaica, then Barbados, then Haiti, and then he went back to either America or Ethiopia. Because he was doing like a kind of a world tour at the time. And I also didn't know that the Ethiopian Orthodox Church was established in Trinidad in 1962, and it was the first Ethiopian Orthodox Church to be established outside of Ethiopia and Israel. And that I didn't know. Anyone has any thoughts or comments on so far? Got a mic over here. Okay. Someone has a question.
Okay.
Yeah, so Mike.
Hey, what's up, Jerome?
Hey, good,
What's
good.
going on?
See ya.
Thank you for giving us the background and the story. It's really
All
good.
right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. I had a question about earlier. You were saying, you visited Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Do you think if you did the depictions again, would your depictions be different now after your visit? Like of Lake Dana and Gondar?
Like I
Or
realized
maybe it's for the next book, maybe.
yeah.
You could do
Well, I
differently.
think when I got there, I realized I was like on point. I was like
Okay.
really close, and there was just a few things that I needed to like tweak. I can't really say exactly right now, but I remember thinking, wow, I think I was close here, from what I researched, and then when I finally got to go there and be, on the ground, interacting with people, and definitely in Ethiopia, it's a different experience when you're there with Ethiopians than Ethiopians and Eritreans in America. It's a totally different, not totally different, but it's a different experience. You get the real deal, when you're there. And another thing I had to consider is that the way it is there in Ethiopia now may not be the same as what it was,
Back then. Yeah.
1,500 years ago. That's another thing I had to consider. For one thing, the languages was not exactly the same. But in 500 AD, there's probably no like Amharic language. And Gears kind of came closer from. I mean, Tigrinya probably came closer from Gears, but it's still different from Gears. It's kind of like you have Latin. From Latin, you got Italian, Spanish, French, and stuff. And then you have languages that are Cushitic, like Oromia and Agawinia and Somalia. Those are not Semitic, so I had to also consider that. And also I had to consider depicting people of different backgrounds in my book that are not just from Aksum. I wanted, because in America I have so many friends from so many different parts of Ethiopia. And then I realized, wait a minute, especially I remember one of my friends who is Oromo, and he said, "Hey Jerome, you have at first the title of my book was Mekonnen the Warrior from Aksum," and he was like, "Hey, if you put that, people are going to think that this book is just about people from Tigray or whatever, And I was like, you know what, you have a point here, even though I already had thoughts of putting, have Mekonnen have friends from different backgrounds. I realized I needed to change the title slightly to the Warrior of Light so that it's more broad and inclusive, right? So yeah. Um, if there's no more questions, I'll go to the next slide. What time is it? I'm gonna take a break in a bit. Going to the next slide. Now, this is one of the most significant influences that I've experienced in Trinidad, even before I even came, and even before I started. This was my pastor, in the gentleman on the right, Reverend Clinton Providence, and his wife Beryl Providence. He has passed away, but growing up, he's the one that where I learned about Africa in the Bible. And he's the one that pointed out that Africans were part of the narrative of our faith, our religion. And you have the Ethiopian eunuch that the Apostle Philip baptized. You have, like I mentioned before, the River Gihon, the Garden of Eden. Then you have the King Solomon and Queen of Sheba, and the Queen of Sheba, I found out, does have some connections with Ethiopia and also Sheba or Saba, which is Yemen now. So I think there was like a cross-cultural thing going on back then. Then you have Moses and his Ethiopian wife, right? So, and then you have Simon the Cyrenian who helped Jesus carry the cross. He was from North Africa, right? And also this is where I learned about the armor of God in the scriptures. So yeah, big props to my spiritual parents back then. So after that, so I didn't then I did my own personal studies, my own personal research. And back then, the internet didn't exist yet. So I had to go to like a physical library in Arima, the town of Arima, Trinidad, where I lived, and look into encyclopedias and dictionaries, right? So I had to go and like ask the librarian for about, hey, I'm looking for this topic, and she'd go and pick out these books for me. And then at home we had Encyclopedia Britannicas at home, and I'll be pouring through and looking through all of those, those books. I was really nerdy back then, still nerdy now, but I just really loved looking into different cultures and arts and everything. And this is me, young me back then, when I was in Trinidad, and this is one of the first paintings I did that featured the armor of God. You have like a guy in a golden suit confronting a dragon. It was one of the very first things before I even came up with the idea for Mekonnen. I drew this. So this is like in the 90s, like 1990 something, like mid 90s, in the mid 1990s or early 1990s, something like that. Yeah, I'm older than I look. So. First early artwork that I did. There's some like sketches I did in like exercise book or school book, and some early studies, early drawings I did, some notes. There's some more here, some more drawings I did. Kind of like some storyboards that I was planning out, for. And back then I was calling him Martigan, which I'll get to later. I didn't pick the name Mekonnen yet. I was using a name that I got from the movie Willow with Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer was in the Willow fantasy movie, and the character name was Mad Martigan. So I like that name, but I'll get to that later. Here's some more like drawings that I did back then, trying to get a feel of what kind of character that I'm just trying to create. And back to the name, so I was calling him Zeph for Zephaniah, and then Martigan. So also another movie that I loved back then was Ben Hur, and it was like Ben hyphen Hur. So I wanted to like emulate that, Zeph hyphen, Martigan, and the name Martigan that I got was from this movie, Willow. I don't know how many of you have seen this. It's kind of old. And Val Kilmer's character name was Mad Martigan, so I did borrow that name. But now you call him Mekonnen Zephanias Gebresion, you know. And Zephanias is Ethiopic for Zephaniah, so I still kept the Zephaniah part, you know. And Mekonnen, if in case you want to know, it means like a general or elite, you know, someone that's like in charge, kind of. That's the name of the word Mekonnen. You know, and Gebrezion is like servant of Zion. That's and some more artwork that I did, more sketches, storyboards, trying to feel out some ideas here, and just trying to feel out, you know, some adventures that Mekonnen could go on, you know. Yeah. And he has like a friend here that he'll meet, and here he has another like poster that I made, just trying to, you know, and like a love interest, this lady in the back of him here, right? And here's the map again that I drew and painted, actually. Drew and painted this way back in the 90s, and now it's like been used like a lot online, you know. Yeah. And here's another, this is like a poster design that I did for a class project. And as you can see here, I was calling it, see Martigan still, I was still using the name Martigan. A 3-part graphic novel coming soon. So I always had like an idea that it would be a graphic novel. Right. And then like in 1998 is when I moved to the United States, and you know, came on a school visa, went to college. I got an associate's in visual communications and interactive design. And these are some of my early friends that I met in Baltimore area, like around 1990. No, actually in 2000. Yeah, I met them later actually, so I'll get to that later. Right. And then like I had like a series of like dreams and coincidences and prophecies and all kinds of stuff, you know, that's kind of, I felt like was affirming me. Like, I felt like God was talking to me and telling me like I need to continue doing this, you know. And you know, then started meeting the right people, you know. You know, and so I felt like I needed to really press on and get this done, you know, because you know, back in like 2000s, early 2000s, I only had like, you know, I had like those old drawings, I had like notes, I have like ideas, and then like some things happened, and I just started getting, you know, these unexplained, you know, supernatural events were happening in my life, you know. And these are some friends that I met in the DMV area, you know. This is me here when I used to have more hair. I actually had long hair. And I'm still friends with a lot of these people, even to this day, that I met in around 2006, around there. Yeah, and then it was followed by some bad events and, you know, broken promises and meeting the wrong people, you know, disappointments, you know, all kinds of stuff. So, you know, and then I guess, you know, it's part of the experience, part of the journey, part of the spiritual warfare. You know, it's like I'm writing and drawing about spiritual warfare. Then my personal life started experiencing like these like unexplained, weird, you know, bad stuff, and you know, it gets to you, you know. But then you know, as time goes by, you know, you get a boost of motivation and boost of, you know, drive to keep on going and to feel like you need to finish this project, you know, because if I didn't do it, someone else would do it, you know. And somehow I feel like someone else was supposed to do this before me. Maybe even an Ethiopian was supposed to do this, and maybe they didn't follow through, and God gave it to someone else. I don't know. I'm just, you know, I'm just thinking of that, you know. And one time I had I had stopped working on this for a while, and then I found out that someone else was making another story and with a similar name, and someone at work told me, "Oh, is that like so and so, so and so?" Like, and are you working with so? I'm like, "No, that's not me. What are you talking about?" So I googled it. I'm like, and I saw like this other Ethiopian and a Nigerian was working on another project that had a similar name. You know, it was kind of like Mekonnen, but it was different, and it wasn't even an Ethiopian project they were working on. It was like Estonian, like somewhere in Europe or something like that. They were making a game. Yeah, it was like a interactive game they were making. I was like, dang. And then I was listening to a program on I think it was like NPR or some of those radio where they were interviewing people, and this person said that something like that happened to her where she stopped working on a book or a project, and then she found out that someone else picked up that she doesn't even know picked up the idea and was was working on something very similar. It's like I was like, oh no, okay, this is weird. Yeah. So more research. These are a list of some of the books that I used, for reference, for working on these things. One of the big main ones was by Stuart Monroe Hay. The late Stuart Monroe Hay wrote Axum, an African civilization of antiquity. Very detailed research he did, and archaeology also he did. You know, then I have a comparative dictionary of gears. You know, I was trying to be so authentic that I was trying to get into the actual language that they were speaking there, and I try to use some words and phrases and sentences in that language, you know, and also some books like lost books of the Bible, like Book of Enoch, Book of Jubilees, and the Book of Jasher. Very crucial in my research. Some of these books are actually already in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, and you got histories and legends, the Kabbalah. You have Kabbalah is Glory of the Kings, talking about King Solomon and Queen of Sheba and their son Menelik, and the drama with them stealing the ark and all that stuff. I don't know if that really really happened, but it makes for a great story and a great background. I think some of it it might be true, but I digress. Then you have Eusebius and Josephus languages, and then I studied ancient and modern languages. You have Ge'ez, Agawinia, and Amharic, and also Tigrinya and Oromia, Afan Oromia, if I say that properly. All right. And yeah, Epic Adventures of, and then this is a guidebook that I created when I started working on my book again in 2006, and I just wanted to gather as much information that I could of some of the different characters that's going to be in the story, and I made like profiles and information about them, like their names, their backgrounds, what language they speak, what's their weaknesses, what's your strengths. This is a guidebook, and I never published this book before. This was just something that, yeah, and the reason why I did this was so that I can submit this to the Library of Congress so that it's copyrighted. So I wanted to make sure that my work was copyrighted so that no one would steal it, because I had some of my stuff in the public already, and I wanted to protect my work, because people's work get stolen a lot, even when it's in the early stages, your work could be stolen by famous like studios, and people can steal your work. Yeah, Library of Congress, very important. So that in case, basically, if when you do that, you protect your work, and if you find out someone's using your characters, you can show proof that, hey, I already own this. I already been working on this thing here. And I became very ambitious with learning different languages. Not to learn to speak them fluently, but at least learn the basics of how I can put words together and use the script. Because I wanted Mekonnen to meet people from different parts of the world, not just Ethiopia, but he was going to travel up the Nile and go up to Nubia and Egypt and Israel, Palestine, Middle East, Persia, Europe. I wanted them to travel all. It's like a huge, epic. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of stop here, take a break. If anyone has any questions, I'd like to just kind of take a little breather. We talk for like an hour. Any points? Yeah.
Will there be a Mekonnen epic for? Will he travel to Trinidad and Tobago?
No.
No.
No, he wouldn't travel there because Trinidad and Tobago was too far, and it wasn't Trinidad and Tobago back then. It was inhabited by the native people. So he wouldn't. He
Maybe
wouldn't go there.
multi-universe? No.
Good point. Maybe
Okay.
multi-universe. Yeah. So yeah, so I'm just gonna. Actually, I wanted to show a couple of yeah, you guys can walk around and stuff, and I'm just gonna look for some video shots of me while I was in Ethiopia and just showing me like taking tours. Do you have a question, Farah? Sorry.
Yes, I do. You mentioned how you came up with the idea when you were younger. How old were you when you came up with the idea? And with the original title, I believe Makonnen's name was Zeph.
Matigan.
Yes,
Zeph
Zeph
Matigan,
Matigan.
yeah.
And it tended to look a little bit more sci-fi like. So my second question is, were you leaning towards a more sci-fi aesthetic originally?
No, I wasn't leaning towards sci-fi. I was trying to go total fantasy, ancient kind of thing. Yeah. I was about between 17 and 18, 19 when I got the idea for Mekonnen. I actually had other stories before Mekonnen. I have like other. I do have a sci-fi story that I didn't like fully develop yet, and I have like kind of a psychological thriller kind of thing that's set in Trinidad that I haven't completed yet. So but for the past like 20 something years I've been like focusing on Mekonnen. So, and I was talking to one of my friends. I was telling him, I feel like I need to get back to working on go back to one of my other stories, maybe take a break and work on my sci-fi, dragonfly character, So yeah. I was about 17 or 18, 19. I got the idea. Yeah. Let me see, find a video here to show. Oh, there's no volume. Okay. Let me see. Maybe. Okay, I wanted to show us a video of me in. Is there any volume we can get? I'm playing a video.
I can get you a device that can get you.
Oh, okay. Well, I can just talk through.
No,
Yeah.
I'll get you.
Yeah, there's no volume. So this is just me taking a tour with my guide sitting in Lalibela. He's just walking through. This is one of the churches that's dug out of a mountain. This was in 2019 when I first went to Ethiopia. Oh, it's not even showing. Okay. Thanks. Let me see. Yeah. Why isn't it? It's just stuck. Oh, you know what? I think I need to turn off the presentation. Maybe that's why it's still on. Yeah, that's why it's still on. I'll turn this off. End show. Okay. Okay. Okay, yeah, see. Yeah, it's all the way up already. I think I hear something. I think Mhm. coming out. Wait, maybe I can switch. Sometimes you need to switch it. Let me see. I was wondering if sometimes, on the laptop you have to switch the output maybe. Yeah. Not seeing it right now. Yeah. Speaker. Speaker. Okay. Oh. Yeah, the sound in the laptop.
So yesterday when I say three times. Standing on that round the churches to attack.
Try again.
biggest
Okay, yeah,
largest
it was just like
is
Speaker?
yeah, the speaker is here. Yeah.
So this is a door. This is a king glass. This is made of poly wood.
Seeing the architecture of how it was created. Also taking this design. This is in Lalibela, but the design originated in Aksum where the story begins. So, but the design, the architecture can continue down through different parts.
Were you able to put some of this in your book?
Yeah, I do have this in my book. Yeah. Some of the artwork. So even in the first part, see the shapes right there in the palace. Those steps were pretty steep. Those steps were pretty steep, and we were wondering if they were like they were tall people, like, cause they were like, we're like, man. So Steve, you had a question, James? You had a hand up. No. Yeah, the steps were like really steep.
Matiyas here. So yeah, back in the States after my 4-week trip and adventure to Ethiopia, the land where Mekonnen, the Warrior of Light, is from. So I was able to go to a lot of the cities and regions and the historical and inspirational sites where the adventure takes place in my first book, Mekonnen, the Warrior of Light, which is available right now in Amazon, in paperback and Kindle. I was able to go to Bahar Dar and Abai Falls, and also to Lake Tana. We went to 2 monasteries in the lake, and then we went to Gondar, so the amazing castles, and also to Aksum, where the center of the empire was, which is the time frame where my character has his adventures, and then we went to Lalibela, and in the book it's called Roha because back then it was a different name, and so yeah, just get to copy my book when you have a chance, and look for more photos and videos on it in social media, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.
So let me see if I can find a couple interesting videos to show. Trips. Let me go to my photo storage. This is my graduation. Let's see which.
Mr. Jerome, it looks
Yeah.
like you're an Android fan over Apple.
Yeah, I am. Android is just more affordable for me for now. Okay, here's some pictures of me, some pictures in Ethiopia. So this is pictures in Aksum here. 2019, where the Mekonnen story begins. So you have the stele here, these structures that were erected maybe 2,000, 3,000 years ago, something like that. Yeah. You guys from Ethiopia, right? Yeah. Where you from? Addis, okay. Have you ever been to any of these places, like Gondor, Axum? Yeah. Lalibela, okay. Yeah, nice. Yeah. Baradar, yeah. Yeah, I've been to Gondor, Lalibela often. I've been there like many times. Yeah. So Axum. Yeah, not many people were able to go to Axum back then. Because the war started right after this. Yeah, the war started. So this is my guide showing me the again, the architecture, this stele that fell. Apparently, it fell not too long after they erected it, uh, almost 2,000 years ago. Like they put it up, and maybe the base wasn't proper and it fell. So yeah. But it would have been the largest stele there. But now it's just fallen. So it's like, so it has like doors and windows. It looks like a 12-story building. It's like they were prophesying skyscrapers before they were skyscrapers. Yeah, this is Yurga. This guy, he was actually in a documentary that I saw. It was an old document, like 20 years ago. He was like younger, and he was talking to some guy. He was doing the same thing that he was doing for me, Yurga Feseha. I lost contact with him. I wish I can find him again to ask him more questions, but he really knows this. He really knows a lot. He knows his history is just really, really good. This is some of the tunnels going into the tombs where the kings were buried, right? Yeah, right underground. A bird there. Come back out. The tombs. This is where one of the kings are actually buried here. This is like actually literally like a, what do you call, like, he's actually like someone in there in that thing there. Yeah. Some of the architectural designs, the stele. Yeah, walking among it, there's a path there. The mountains are pretty dry, It wasn't always dry, but it became dry. Yeah. I think like during the time of my book, it was green, like trees and stuff in the mountains, Here's like an optical illusion. Yeah, like touching the top of the thing. Nope, wrong way. Nope, not there. There we go. I like this cool pose. Yeah. It'd be cool, like, to imagine, like, Mike, you're talking about the multiverse. If he goes through that door, he can go to Trinidad. See, let's open that door. And go somewhere else. I may put something like that in my book, actually. Go through there. There's some portal stuff in my book, right? It's been a while since I read my own book. Right, Vera? I think there's some part in my book where an angel comes and he throws a stone and opens a door and they run through, or something like that, right? Huh? Yeah, it's been a while too, right? Yeah. Yeah, there's something like that in there. Yeah, there's people on YouTube talking about experiences where they actually did teleport. Even in the Bible, with Philip that baptized the Ethiopian, he teleported. He disappeared, right? He actually disappeared, And there's other stories that I've met people who've teleported. There's stuff on YouTube. There's stuff, the strange world. So stuff happens, This is a wedding that was happening in Aksum when I was there. Even while I was working on my book, I had like times I would dream stuff, and before it happened, or I'll write or draw something, and someone will be talking on, preaching a message, like a sermon or something, and they're like describing something I wrote or drew, and like, I never met this person before. They're describing they're describing this stuff that I wrote. They're describing the demons. They're describing the angels. They describe the lion. It's like weird stuff that's happened to me while working on this thing. Yeah. What's up, Brandon? You good? Good to see you, man. Yeah, glad you made it. Yeah. So let me go to another part of Ethiopia and I'll get out of Aksum. Let's go somewhere else. Wish I can find the pictures where I went to Hawassa and stuff. I had some really nice pictures in Hawassa. And when I passed through Shashamene, that's in the Oromia region. Shashamene is a part where, so Haile Selassie, he gave land to the Rastafarians in Haile Selassie in Shashamene. When he went, after he went to Jamaica, And so, but when I went there, I thought the whole city was like Caribbean people and Rastafarians. But when I went there, it was like Ethiopians, regular Ethiopians. And I was like, where the Rastafarians? Oh, you got to go in a village somewhere. Oh, okay. I was like, so I never got to go see my brothers, the Caribbean people over there, But and then when I did research, there's not that many Rastafarians living there right now anyway. So back when it first they moved there, it was like a couple thousand. Now it's only like a couple hundred people, a couple of hundred Rastafarians. So it's not like it used to be. Things changed. So I'm trying to find. But anyway, I want to show. This is I call her my twin sister. We have the same birthday, and I actually used her as a model for one of my characters in my book, and her name is Betty, and we have the same birthday, except I'm older, and she gave me permission to use her face and features for one of my characters in my book, so you'll see it in there. This is us in Yod Abyssinia restaurant. You've been to Yod Abyssinia? Yeah, it's really nice. They have live music and dancing and stuff at nighttime. Really nice. Nice designs on the walls, everything. Yeah. Yod Abyssinia in Addis Ababa. So they had different types of cultural dances. They had Tigrinya, Amhara, Oromia, probably Gurai, and all those different types of styles of dance and clothing. This is Walaita. Yeah, Walaita. It's really colorful, black and white, yellow. Yeah. Oh, it's like a suplex. It looks dangerous. But they knew what they were doing. So Sure, which one this is? This is Gondor. When I see those, it's Gondorian. Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure which one this was. Do you know which this one is? The stripes. Not sure. Okay. Tigrinya? Yeah. It's slower, Yeah. They take their time, yeah. Gondori is fast, right? Guragi is really fast. It's playing the beginner. A little slow internet there. See what later. We have like 25 minutes before I can wrap up. Internet get a little slow. Okay, let's go to somewhere else. Gondor and Beta Israel. So yeah, Beta Israel, that's House of Israel. Those were Ethiopian Jews, and they practiced Judaism in Ethiopia. Most of them now live in Israel, or Palestine area, whatever. Most of them are there now, but and I have that. I mentioned that in my book too. During the time back then in Aksum, they had during the time of my story, they had a peace treaty with Beta Israel, Aksum and Beta Israel. They were fighting each other back and forth. Even they were fighting each other even in Yemen, which was called Himyara and stuff. And they had a peace treaty during the time of my book. And so they, but they were the same people. It's just just the religion. So what happened? Some Beta Israel converted to Christianity and some didn't, and they just remained. So of course they look the same. They look like Ethiopian, but they wanted to practice. But the Axumites, they wanted to stop Judaism, and they say no more ark, no more sacrificing using the ark and stuff like that. So they stopped. They were like fighting them, and then they went away Lake Tana, and they took away the Ark of the Covenant and brought it into Aksum. And that's basically the story. What might have happened. Yeah. So, but yeah, just some old books and scrolls and things in Lake Tana. They have like museums, you're right? They have old crosses and parchments, for writings, crowns. See, menorah. So definitely there was Judaism there because you have this menorah, and they just went and they stopped it. And some drawings kind of blurry, right? This is depicting the Holy Miriam and Jesus and probably disciples. I think it's depicting old crosses. So some of these crosses are really old, hundreds of years, thousands of years. Some of these drawings are very old, hundreds or thousands of years. Old books, old drawings, paintings. Someone living there, living the island. It's the water. Mm-hmm. So, as you go there, you feel like you go back in time, And even the way they tell the time there, when I first went to Ethiopia, how they told time, it was like 1 o'clock is actually 7 o'clock in the morning, right? And then like 9 o'clock is like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it took me a while to get used to doing that and telling that, telling the time even. I'll say, well, okay, I'll meet you at 2 o'clock local time, 8 o'clock American time, to make sure we meet at the same time. Yeah. Like going back, this is just parts of my book. Some local people on the road, some farm areas, vegetations, bananas, cattle. Blue Nile Falls, right? This is Blue Nile Falls going to Tisat Falls. It's where the origin, where the Nile begins, at Tisat Falls. Really nice people, really people just, trying to make a living. And they sell, people come and selling jewelry and things like that, And one guy, he was playing his flute while following us, The Washintu, I think they call the flute, yeah. Yeah, so this is the river there, going towards. You guys have to go. All right, see you guys. Thanks for coming. Thank you for coming. Okay. Yeah, this is the Abel Falls. Have you guys ever seen it when it was big, flowing? Yeah, I wish I could have seen it when it was really big. Now it's so small, Yeah. So Mekonnen, he goes there too in my book, and he goes to like a village. So I imagine there's a village. And they call it Gihon village, and there's like people from all parts of Ethiopia and Africa and Kenya living in this village, and they're like, they're just like, living in peace and worshiping God and things, So yeah, just imagine that in the book. It's my guide, Haile Mariam. He's a very good historian too. He knows a lot about history of everything, like church history and Ethiopian history. He knows a lot. He wrote a book too. And I actually helped him. He wrote a book in Amharic, and I helped him publish it in Amazon. And then he wrote another book in English, and I proofread it for him, to make sure the English was good. I just did that for him like a few months ago. So keep in touch.
What's the title of the book?
Yeah, his book, Deb Anbasa. Deb and Bessa, yeah. It's in Amharic, even in the Amharic script and everything. So I was only able to I couldn't read it, my Amharic is slow, so but he doesn't want it to be formatted and publish it in Amazon, just put it together and upload it. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to bring a copy. I don't know if I bring a copy here to the store to sell. This is a restaurant in the Bahar Dar, I think. Yeah, Chichima. Yeah, Chechago. Yeah, really nice, good restaurant. Live music, some artwork, angels on the ceiling. Hello, ma'am. That's me. Just sitting together. Bahar Dar streets with Bajaj. Bahar Dar. It's a farm, people living on farms. We just got out of our car and we just walked up to a house and introduced ourselves, and they served us coffee, Yeah, they just served us coffee and we just hung there for a bit. Yeah, we gave us some bread, just simple, friendly people. We drive from Bahar Dar to Gondor. Imagine that. We actually drove in the Tob van. So we get to see the whole, we get to see the mountains on the side and see the villages and all that. So it was like 6 hour drive, Just making bread. Or this part that there's a name for this, like finger of God or something like that. It looks like a finger. So they call it the finger of God or something like that. Yeah. Have you ever been to Simin Mountains? Simin Mountains? You been? Oh, okay, I need to go there to the Simin Mountains.
If you have time, you can spend more time there, and you will find a lot of stories that will help you with the book.
Okay, in Simin Mountains?
Yeah,
Okay, well, what would I see?
the people who you're going to meet there.
The people?
Yeah.
Okay, they can tell me most. Oh, more monasteries there. Okay, right. Monks still there.
If you have
Okay,
lucky, they will tell you like
they'll tell me.
history or story. Or
I'm sure, right?
you can add it with the
True.
Mekonnen story. So
Yeah, true.
then
Yeah,
you will like Mekonnen, the second part with different
yeah,
views and
yeah. Okay, because in my book he does go to Simin Mountains and he meets people. He has adventures. Days. In fact, he's running away from the bad guys in the Simin Mountains, and then some of the Beta Israel were living in the Simin Mountains
yeah.
also back then. So I had him meeting Beta Israel and helping them and helping them fight the demons, because they were like attacking everybody in the story, and any human they were attacking, because the demons were not human, but everybody in Aksum and Beta Israel, everybody is human, Yeah. Okay, let me wrap up this one. Yeah, this is the Beta Israel Museum. They had a lot of things about figurines about yeah, in this like little kind of museum. See the Star of David, all these little things is supposed to be Queen of Sheba and the King Solomon together. Those little figurines is what they have there, yeah. So the little kids, they're cute. They're just selling these little things. That's my drawing of the Queen of Sheba that in my book. Yeah, King Solomon, Queen of Sheba, yeah. It's explaining everything. See, look at that Star of David. I think that Star of David came later. I don't think they were using the star back then, so they were just using that for the tourists, They were using the menorah back then, not the star,
were crunched. The original materials have been buried. And this one, the original one's been remade. The original was made out of ebony wood. It was nicely decorated. These are beautiful flowers on the board.
Okay.
And it was nicely painted. There used to be,
Oh, it's painted.
yeah, it was nicely graded with ivory, gold leaves, and a lot of different materials. All these things have been loaded. And on the wall, you can see the star of David, you see?
Oh, yeah.
And there's one because of the finish back.
Right.
The kings claim that they noticed that from something dynasty. So this was used as an emblem by the Ethiopian kings to claim that they were this man from something dynasty.
So he's just explaining in this building what they were using, what it probably looked like back then, and everything. This is some more artwork in the museum, Beta Israel kind of reservation. Yeah. And this is the Fasidalis, Gebi Fasidalis, right, in Gondor. Yeah.
I believe she's from London.
Oh, you're from Gondor? Okay, nice. Yeah, I love. I really like Gondor area. Especially Timket and the celebration. I love it. Yeah. Do you know this guy? You don't. You don't know. Okay. Just wonder if you saw him or met him. He teaches like English too. He teaches English in Gondor, like an English school. Okay, so it's gonna get out of this one. So it's supposed to wrap up 8:30. So we can just hang. I'm just showing random videos. Going back through memory lane. This is me here standing by the pool. Yeah, they fill it up with water and they baptize in the Temket. Yeah. And sometimes
When was the first time when you did that?
first time was in 2019. That was the first time I went.
Oh, okay.
And since then I've been back like 5 or 6 times. Yeah. I've been back really often. And I've been to, I usually go to Addis, and then sometimes I fly to Gondor or I fly to Addis Ababa because, there's still my friends. Lalibela, there's still my friends there. We still keep in touch, Sometimes we call each other on Facebook.
This is one of the Gondor castles, the Faciladis Plat. This is the last one before I head on to Aksum. Aksum is the city where character Mekonnen begins his adventure. See, stay tuned.
All right. Okay, brother. So yeah, that's most of my. This is the museum in Addis Ababa. Addis Ababa Museum and Zoo. Went there with one of my. Yeah, actually, one of my best friends' uncle works here, Mr. Solomon. You can see all the artifact, all the old things that they found in Ethiopia. Have you been to this museum? Yeah, you've been to this one, yeah. It said the Lucy is there, the oldest human bones they've found. Some horns, yeah. Old animals. Just went there with my friends, met some new friends there. The Sheban Sabaean script alphabet, which is very similar to the Fidel, Ethiopian alphabet, and they say this is where they were inspired. They used the script, this Shiban script for Sabaean script or Shiban for the Ge'ez script. As you can see, some of the letters look really similar. Yeah. So this is kind of proof that there's a connection between the two cultures. There's Yemen and Ethiopia are close to each other anyway. It's like right there, Gulf of Aden. Yeah. Some old figurines, pottery. Coins. Ethiopia has they were one of the first sub-Saharan African countries to mint their own coins. And coins were found all the way in India. They found Ethiopian Oxamite coins in India and China because they traded with these, they traded with the Roman Empire, So they found all these coins like around the world. The coins were written with Greek, and then when they became Christian, they changed it to Ge'ez or something like that, and they changed it to the letters to the Ethiopian alphabet, or letters. Some games they made here, coming more to the modern time now. That's Mr. Solomon and a young lady there that was with Terodros swords and shield. I think that's Haile Selassie's throne, I think. Yeah. This is showing the story I was telling you about with Wainaba the snake, the serpent. I think this is telling that story, this storyboard here. It's one of the wars. I think this is Adwa. Tablets look like guys. All right. Some artwork. The ibex, walia. All right. Well, I think I'll wrap up now. Thank you guys so much for coming. It was fun. And I hope it was inspiring. And yeah. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Bless. All right. Bye.